And so it's finally here, after a long time coming, it's finally time to review Heroes Rising, aka My Hero Academia movie number 2. Whoever smelt it, dealt it. Anyway, we'll move on quickly and swiftly into the positives because, don't want to waste your time. I feel like I've got a bit of a cough coming along, so we'll just get into the review and enjoy ourselves. So we'll just start out with some lighter positives before we move into the deeper stuff. I just want to say that I think the animation in this movie is great. I do, however, feel that there are moments in this movie, much like the first movie, where it does feel like you're watching a feature-length version of the TV show, as there are, quite honestly, many moments in this movie where it just doesn't feel quite as cinematic as it really should do. It really doesn't feel quite as cinematic as the third movie. However, I will say in the moments where it counts, like the action, the animation team just did great. The flair and personality of our main cast is just brilliantly maintained, both in the action moments and as well when they're doing their more casual stuff, just dossing about and just screwing about and having fun. Of course, when they're doing their superhero stuff, it's done with some flair and dynamism, which really does make it exciting and thrilling to watch. Or as much superhero stuff as it can really do, as in the first act, they're really just kind of getting jobbed about by the locals. Yes, this is another summer break kind of thing, where our heroes are doing a little bit of work experience on Nabu Island. Yes, Nabu, like Star Wars. Because if people haven't noticed by now, there's this running motif where locations in the main series are named after places in Star Wars. Though in the dub they refer to it as Nabu, which, yeah, legally they kind of need to, but no, that isn't the joke. And interestingly, or curiously, this is the second movie where the action takes place on an island. In the first movie, it takes place on Island. In this one, it takes place in Naboo. And in the third movie, it takes place on a fictional island just north of Galicia in north of Spain, which is an interesting thing to realise. It's I suppose it helps make it a little bit more self-contained and easy to decanonise, I suppose. But anyway, in this movie, our heroes are getting a taste of what life is like working as a hero at an agency, though this is an agency that they've formed themselves as part of their little work assignment thing. Though, to be honest, it's not really hero work, as I said previously, it's more them getting jobbed about by the locals to do minor things. Very domestic, very mundane things. Oh, Granny needs help getting to the doctor's. Oh no, my car won't start. Oh dear, I've lost my luggage. Oh crumbs, there's a resonance cascade. Oh dear, my tractor's battery needs charging. All standard, everyday stuff, which they all do with humour and a little bit of slapsticky fun thrown in. And I like that stuff. Quite honestly, I'd have been fine with a little bit of a filler arc in the main series where this is basically just what our heroes end up doing. A nice little arc where there's no big, bad, spooky villains, no world-ending events, just a small little slice of life bit of fun where our superhero characters are learning more about themselves and the world around them and what it takes to be a real hero and not just one that really punches the bad guy really hard in the schnoz. And then, I don't know, maybe you have a big squiggly wiggly monster at the end of it because I guess you need to or whatever. But still, all this stuff is done with good humour and great enthusiasm, both from our characters and our writers. Like, they managed to find some really cool ways that our heroes can use their superpowers in just some really mundane scenarios, and seeing all that stuff is just really fun to watch, and I suppose it must have been a lot of fun to just kind of come up with how these characters can use their superpowers in just rather everyday scenarios. There is this fun little moment towards the start of the movie where Mineta, surprisingly, doesn't act like a creepy little perv goblin, and he helps stop two pervy guys from perving and being creepy and weird to some women, and then they totally blank him and felt that someone else saved them, which is a fun little joke. This entire first act of the movie has this great, cheery, summery feel to things, and had the rest of this movie had just been this kind of tone, I'd be perfectly fine with it. Though I will admit that for certain audiences, I don't think a 2.5 hour long movie where our hero just kind of have a bit of a summer vacation, just doss about, get up to a little bit of tomfoolery, a little bit of wacky slice of life shenanigans, probably would have irritated the piss out of them, but for me it would have been perfectly fine. But hey ho, we don't really get that, because of course we need to have a deeper, darker storyline, of course we need to have a villain, and in this one our villain is 9! The unseen prototype successor to All for One, who breaks free in the opening minutes of the movie after a kind of okay action sequence. 9 is interesting, but not from the point of view of their personality, of their backstory. As to be blunt with you, they are just the most common or garden variety superhero villain that you can really get. They are, I wouldn't even say the store brand version of All for One. No, they are. They are kind of store brand version of All for One, but they are definitely one of the most generic villains I think that there's ever been in My Hero Academia. They want to create a new world order where only the strongest rule and survive, which is seemingly a slightly less anarchic vision for the future than All for One, and a less destructive vision than Tomura's, but still, yeesh, he could literally be a villain in almost any other piece of superhero fiction. Be that anime, be that manga, be that comic book, be that animation. He's just a thoroughly dull villain from start to finish. And he really shouldn't be. This guy is the OG successor to All for One, the one that predates Tomura. And whilst he does share All for One's vision, he wants to do it his own way. And he's only using the League of Villains for his own ends. He's doing this very much for his own selfish desires, but outside his quirk and the limitations of that quirk, that's about as interesting as he gets. Why 9 wants to do all this is never really discussed or elaborated on. The closest that we get to a backstory with him comes from a flashback sequence that we get with his co-villain Chimera, where we see him wandering the streets dressed in what looks like a curtain before he ends up saving Chimera and recruiting for his gang. And at this point, he's still called 9! Which itself feels like it should be a code name or a reference to the fact... Well, it is a reference to the fact his body could only hold 9 quirks, but he didn't have that power at this point. And given that we see him wandering about in the way that he does during that flashback sequence, there was a part of me that was wondering if the twist with him was going to be that he was this clone of All for One that managed to get loose, but then because he is just this weird, twisted clone, inadvertently finds himself falling back in league with the League of Villains, but that itself doesn't end up happening. He's just a guy who just so happens to look like, sound like, act like a younger version of All for One, especially when he ends up getting that similar kind of quirk. The fact he's called 9 before he gets the upgrade from the League of Villains feels like a plot hole. Like, again, it feels like he's called 9 because he should be like the 9th clone or something like that. Because the name 9 is a reference to the fact his body can only hold 9 quirks, but he didn't... He had that name before he gained that quirk, so it feels like a little bit of a plot hole here. It kind of feels like this should be a reference to a plot thread that was just dropped, so... Yeah, fanfiction writers, get on it. Make a timeline where he was a clone of All for One or something like that. I don't think it would have changed that bunch, but hey-ho, it would have made it a little bit more interesting. Of course, right now you're probably thinking, Chris, why are you slagging off a character in the positive section? Well, the truth is that whilst I find the character, well, as a character crap, I do find them interesting as a concept, as they represent the unseen threat and the continued influence of All for One. It shows that even in prison, at this part in the story, he still is able to have all these schemes in motion in the background. Plans and schemes that our heroes, even if they manage to stop them, will never really know that he was behind them. And it also gives us, I suppose, a vision of what Dabi would have been like had he become All for One's successor. Powerful, yes, but too reckless to really get anything done without everything coming crashing down around him. Regrettably, 9 is just a rather bland villain, devoid of personality and just intensely dull. He does cut an interesting figure though in the way that he's designed, particularly towards the end of the movie where the serum stuff starts shooting out of his back and it almost looks like he has wings, so he looks like this strange corrupted angel. That whole final action sequence with him is kind of great. I do have some issues with it which I'll discuss shortly, but it's good enough for what it is, and it's at that moment where the animation quality just really goes up to the next level. Like, as I've said previously, up until that moment, there's frequent sequences in this movie where it does feel like we're just watching an extended version of the main series, an extended episode from the main series, I should say, but Once we start getting into the final fight stuff, that's when things really start to turn around and we get some really interesting looking animation. I really do like the fact that our extended cast do actually have something to contribute to this movie. It's not like in the first one where they just kind of spend most of the time stood around in the background looking baffled by everything that's going on. They're all involved to some extent or another, or really as far as their quirk will allow them to do. They're not just standing in the background going, "Go, Deku!" or whatever, as you'd often get in some of the kind of series like this. And in the end, they're giving it their all to try and save this village, even if they're incredibly out of their depth, which does add an extra layer of drama to everything that's going on here. And whilst it is a part of me that would have liked to have seen a little bit more of them throughout this movie, the truth of the matter is that we had seen more of them, it would have taken away from the core plot, which I will admit is fine. That's all I can really say to it. It isn't quite as compelling as I really would have liked to be. It's not as compelling as the first movie, certainly isn't compelling as the third movie, but I ultimately think that part of the issues I have with the story itself just comes down to the fact that our main villain is just really rather lame and just isn't developed anywhere near as much as he should be. The two kid characters that our heroes need to protect are fine, but I think that for characters like that to work, they need to be the heart and soul of the movie, which regrettably they don't end up being because so much of our focus is on the main villain. And even then, what focus we do have the main villain doesn't really develop them or make them a compelling focus. They're just... all the time that we have focus on them is just to show them being a threat on a power level. We don't really see why they're a threat on an emotional level or on a thematic level. They're just kind of a shop brand version of All for One, but with a modus operandi that could have come out of almost any other superhero work of fiction for the past 100 years or so. But hey, with that kind of tone in mind, let us move on to the negatives. Now, I'm just going to start off with a couple minor negatives, and these are a little bit more procedural. They're not really meant for the movie itself. First minor negative that I have is that the box art for my copy of the Blu-ray is rather bad. Like, it's a Blu-ray copy and it has a cardboard sleeve over it. The actual artwork on the Blu-ray itself is fine, it's good. I think it's a little bit visually busy, but I think it's good enough for what it is. But the artwork on the cardboard sleeve is just really blurry. It feels like they just stretched the artwork for the DVD, Blu-ray cover, and yeah, it just looks a little bit too scrunchy, a little bit too greasy for my liking. It does undermine what is otherwise some rather nice artwork. On the back of the Blu-ray and also the cardboard cover, yeah, it's just a black background with text overlaid on top of it. It looks really cheap. It's like those low-budget VHS releases from back in the day for some kind of cheapo shot on VHS horror movie. It doesn't look anywhere near as compelling or exciting as it really should be. It's just white text on a background with a few very small screenshots from the movie with some really overly colourful borders around them. It's supposed to, the black backdrop is not supposed to be pure black. There's supposed to be like a superhero kind of background thing, but it's so black that on the cardboard sleeve you can't see it, and on the Blu-ray it just looks rather too murky to really be visually impressive, which is a shame. As for the copy of the Blu-ray that I got, well, it's supposed to come with a free digital copy, which is no longer available because the Funimation download service is now defunct, and something I really could have done with for reasons which I may discuss shortly. As for the film itself, again, the film quality itself was fine, but I do have two issues with it, I have to admit. One of them is, again, another minor one, which is the fact I feel that sound mixing for the movie wasn't the best. It feels as though there were just certain sound effects which just weren't added at all in post-production. Like, there's that moment where Chimera knocks down the mobile phone mast and we see it fall in the background. And there's no sound there. You don't hear the metal bending and creaking. There's no impact and boom as it lands on the ground. Nothing whatsoever. And there's frequent moments throughout the entire movie where that's just the way that things go for reasons I just don't know. I can understand that towards the end of the movie they do pull the sound effects for artistic reasons, which, whilst I'm not a big fan of that, I do have to respect the choice of it. However, all the other times it happens, it's not done for the sake of artistry. Maybe this is just a problem with the dubbed version, because I ended up watching the dubbed version because, quite honestly, it took far too long to get this movie working for me, so in the end I just picked whichever one was the first one playing, and maybe it's not there on the subtitle version, maybe it's there in the original version, but the absence of certain sound effects does feel incredibly conspicuous. A major issue, though, I have to say, is I'm not a big fan of the whole Super Saiyan Deku and Super Saiyan Bakugo moment. I know that literally that isn't what happened, but visually it did remind me of all of that. I don't like the design of it. I just think it's a little bit too... Well, I think it's a little bit too Dragon Ball. It's a little bit too gimmicky. The idea of Midoriya having to share his power with Bakugo is a neat one. Short-lived as it is, given that this is a movie, but again, the way that they looked just looks silly to me. I'm not a fan of when My Hero Academia starts to look and act like Dragon Ball. I don't think that's a path the series should really go down, but ultimately it's a path that it seems to be going down all the same. Like, I would have been fine with the moment of them having to share the power had it not looked the way that it did. Though, granted, at the same time, you kind of need something big and bombastic as that and something really cool, because that's supposed to be happening at the climax of the movie. Though I'm sure they could have cooked up something that looked a little bit more interesting than this, a little bit less Super Saiyan, but... hey-ho, that's just the way that it is. It's a minor gripe in the scheme of things. I think it's even still, as much as I don't like the way that they ended looking, I have to say that how it was animated was still good. The second major issue that I have is I don't like the way in which the movie went out of its way to return to the status quo of Midoriya having one for all. Like, I know that they have to do it. This is a movie, and they can't have stuff lingering from the movie going into the main series, but... the way in which all this was put together, the way that it is stated, or at least heavily hinted, is that Bakugo willingly gave up that power for Midoriya because that is what he needed. Midoriya needs to be the big hero, and he just gave it up willingly. This shows how Bakugo has matured and grown over the course of the series up until this point, and it also hints that he will continue to mature and grow as the series ends up going on. And if that's all it was with him just giving up the power willingly, I'd have been fine with that. You know, maybe then towards the end of the movie, you could have a short little scene where Midoriya says thanks to Bakugo for giving up the power, but then Bakugo makes some snarky comment about how he doesn't need the power and how he'll be the #1 hero even without All for One. And that, or One for All, I should say. And that would have been fine. A nice little neat way to round everything off. But instead we don't get that because Bakugo's lost his memory and he doesn't know what happened to him in the final half of the battle. He has no memory of getting One for All whatsoever. What wacky shenanigans, and totally unneeded. It is established in this movie, let alone this point in the series, that he already knows that Midoriya has All Might's quirk, so it's not needed, it isn't as though they needed to block his memory out so he could then learn that later on in the series. And unless I'm mistaken, he even says he feels that he doesn't need One for All to be the #1 hero, so there's no need for him to not know. The reason why they're doing this is so that it isn't brought up in the main series as an option, that there's not going to be some big battle in the not too distant future where Bakugo turns to Midoriya and says, "Oh, we've got to share One for All again, because that's the only way that we can possibly win." However, Midoriya still remembers all of this. Like, there could still be a big bad who comes up in the future and they have to share that power again, and Midoriya will still remember it. I mean, it could still happen in the main series. I don't really know at this point. It could happen, but if it does happen, everything that will happen will just be recycling sequences and actions and just everything from this tail end of this movie. Our heroes will be at their lowest edge, Midoriya will suggest it, and things will go more or less the same way in which they did when in the climax of this movie. I understand that the canonicity of this movie is nebulous at best, but to go out of their way to try and write all of this out, just... it kind of takes a little bit something from it. I mean, it's not a killer issue. It's not something that undermines the ending of the movie, but it just feels as though it was an unnecessary step. Like, it just kind of caused this thing to go a little bit wonky. It's like they're drawing a really nice picture, but they add a little bit too much detail to one specific area, and it's one of those things where you don't notice it until you do. And then you can't help but notice it from that point on, despite the fact the rest of the painting or picture's brilliant. Like, minor issue in the grand scheme of things, but still, it's a bit of a bummer for me. Bit of a way to ruin a otherwise good ending. But still, time for the overview, and I have to say that this is a fun movie for what it is. I don't think it is the best of the 3 movies I've watched thus far, but with that said, I do think there's a lot going for it that really does make it a remarkable and fun movie within its own right. There's some great action sequences within here, the extended cast gets to do a lot more. I like the main climactic action sequence for what it is. Certain designs notwithstanding, but still, it's fun enough for what it is, and it's well worth watching, even though you might struggle to watch it like I did. Oh, blimey. Anyway, there's not going to be a comment corner for this one because this is a film review and any comments I might read at this point might be spoilers for Vigilantes or for the main series itself, and I am aware that this movie is supposed to be set like a couple of seasons in the past, so I don't want to spoil anything. I'll just say thank you all for watching. Be sure to do all the YouTube stuff that you want to, and if you ever get a Blu-ray drive for your computer, be sure to spend some time ahead of time setting it up, because you can't just play Blu-rays on a Blu-ray drive in your computer anymore. Or if ever. Good God, what a pain in the backside that was. A good hour pissed away because the... Oh, forget it. Whatever, I'm just going to start ranting about something pointless. But anyway, thank you all for watching and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!